Hello, everyone. I am cutting paper strips because we're going to be doing, among many things, a paper bead demonstration today because I got the new tips for the paper bead make rollers and Mark has made them up. They're ready to go. I'm so excited. So I'm cutting up some wonderful paper that I got free from Rainbow Lane and Miss Jilly, and that's where I also got the idea of how to make the paper bead rollers. I bought my current paper bead roller from her, and she has decided not to make them anymore because the shipping from England is just too high. We know what that's like. Shipping everywhere is a real problem. So I think I just have one more to do. Oops, hold on. Don't want to cut my finger while I'm cutting the paper. So now, here are all the strips I made, and I'll put them aside with the paper bead rollers until we do that part of today's show. Let me lock my cutter. Whoops, a couple more beads. All right, so we have that to look forward to. Oh, let me come back to the main screen. I'm so glad you're here. So I thought, I've got to cut these strips. I'll just start the show that way. And I just want to let Miss Bonnie know I have her label made up for her package. It will go in the mail this week. We've got a busy but an exciting week coming up. We're doing our week-long free class, and let me grab our free class. We're going to do the Snail's Trail al fresco. Now, it's a free class, but the pattern you can get online for $3.99, which is a pretty good deal. And I have all the parts to talk to you about. One thing I want to tell you, starting out the show, now we had a cutting party last week where we talked about making how to cut this and how we were doing it. Because what I did is went to EQ8 and made up a paper piece pattern. And I talked about these squares. These are the center for the 8-inch Snail's Trail block. Now this is 4 of them, but let me see. There we go. That's the Snail's Trail 8-inch block. Now, so you're supposed to have a center. To do it paper pieced, you have to have the center pre-pieced so that then you can glue it on the paper. To use glue stick, glue it on the center of the paper. I'll show everyone that in class, but just kind of want to explain what I'm talking about. In the pattern, she said when you make this piece, cut it to 2.5 inches. I want you to cut it to 2 3/4 inches. You can still, if you've already cut all of your centers to 2.5, I'll show you how to make that up. But if you haven't trimmed these down, here's what they look like when you first piece them, and then you will trim them down. So don't worry if you've already trimmed them to 2.5, but if you haven't trimmed them yet, write down on your pattern 2 3/4 inches, because I made a little mistake when I was working up the pattern on EQ, and what my mistake was, I added the seam allowance where EQ does that for you. And I'm going to show you in a few minutes today. I'm going to show you the easiest way to trim these down. Okay? So every stage along the way, you will be doing a little bit of a trim down. It's not that big of a deal though, because when you do paper piecing, it takes care of it in a way for you. You do trimming, but it's very differently done. All right, so I just wanted to say we love Ukraine. In fact, I still have my Ukrainian flag. Let me grab this real quick. Oh, come on. Come on. Okay. So, I want to show you just a couple things. We still have our Ukrainian flag right down here. We have Miss Bonnie's quilt that she gave me, and it says Dare to be Different, which is exactly what I love. I'm trying very hard not to get into politics this week, but honest to goodness, could someone be doing a worse job to this country? I mean, I just don't. The only reason you think he might be doing a good job is because you're watching the big network that lies. So, I'm really furious. I'm furious that PBS and NPR have had their whole budget cut, even though it was already approved. I'm just fed up. So, not sure what else I can do, and I know this is supposed to be our happy place, but this is bad. And if you're at all surprised by the whole Epstein mess, then you haven't been paying attention. So, I will shut up now, move away from that. But you know what? A girl can only take so much. So, but anyway, I am very glad that you are here, and very glad that we're going to spend today doing fun stuff. That's the one good thing about turning off the news for me, is I'm getting a lot done. So anyway, okay, so now the exciting news is I totally finished, well, not totally, I finished piecing the Mosaic sunflower quilt. Let me back up a little bit more so you can see this. Whoops, turn it straight, Deb. Whoop, this way. Okay, there we go. So it's all pieced. All the pieces have been put in place. So, what do you do next? Well, you know, when I work on a project, I kind of make it up as I go. And so I was thinking I was going to quilt it in diagonal lines to make sure that every piece had been sewn down, because fusible doesn't last forever, and fusible, if it's handled a lot, fusible can kind of give it up. So instead of quilting it, because I thought, you know, I hate to kind of, quilting shows, obviously quilting shows. So what I did, do you see the back of it? What I did, and you notice you don't see it on the front, because what I did, let me try to, oh, I don't know if it's going to show on the camera. Let me bring over the light, because what I did is used invisible thread. There, you can kind of see some lines. Not much, though. That invisible thread's pretty good stuff, because you know it was sewn because of the back. But it's real hard. Whoop, there we go. Oh, there's a line of it. See the invisible thread? So, I did every 1/2 inch to 5/8 of an inch on a diagonal, so that every piece, just about, if I saw a piece that wasn't touched, I tried to go back and touch it. Every piece has been at least sewn on. And while this happened, some of the pieces kind of gave loose a little, so I just used some of my tacky glue, because I wanted a glue that would hold and hold right away. So here is, I love this thing, and very, very tickled with the results of this. Now, what's the next step? The next step I've decided, because I'm doing this a little different than I first told you, because it's like once you finish something and look at it and have time to think about it, if you're smart, you can change your mind. You know, you don't stick with something that's not working just because you have no imagination. You change your mind. So, that was a political statement. Sorry, I'm trying my best. Okay, so what I'm going to do next is I've already picked out a backing for this. I'm going to quilt this with a low profile polyester. I don't want to use cotton. You can, but if this gets washed, cotton will shrink, and I don't want the mosaic to shrink. So I'm going to use a low loft polyester. I'm going to put it on my frame, and with the frame I'm going to use a gray blue and kind of do some little curvy lines through the sky, not on the sunflowers, but I'm going to do curvy lines through the sky all the way around, not my leaves either. This is going to require changing thread colors, which I hate, but it's worth it for the final outcome. The leaves, I'm going to outline the leaves, do a little veining just to kind of say, yes, this is a leaf. All of the light greens are leaves. The dark green is just a background for the lower part. Oh my gosh, Lisa's here. Hi, sweetheart. Oh, Andy's here. Hi, Andy. So I'm going to do the leaves separately. I'm going to do a wavy line in the background of all the blue, and probably a wavy line across the dark green. I will take lighter green, one of the greens, and outline this. Meltem is here, and do the veining. And then I've decided, now I'm going to see how this works, but I would like each of these leaves to stand out more. So I'm going to put black thread and outline them so they all pop, because I've done such beautiful work with the leaves, the petals, petals, with the petals, and I want them to show and distinctly. So this is going to spend a few hours, a day or two, on the frame so I can quilt it. And then once that's done, I'm going to probably find a nice bright color to bind this in. Or once it's quilted, I might decide just keep it black, keep it simple, let the mosaic speak. So that's why sometimes it's hard for me to tell you what I'm going to do, because it always changes based on how it looks when it's done. I went back and straightened up my edges, this orange. I noticed that I started getting a little bit wavy. So what I did to move over the orange little squares, because remember, these are 5/8 inch squares, they're small. I took an iron, I ironed them, which loosens the fusible, and while it's still warm, you can peel it off pretty good. But once you take it off, once it's fused and you take it off, it's no more good to use the fusible, so I used the tacky glue to put it back down. But I wanted my edges to be reasonably straight, and so that's what you're seeing. But I have loved this, and I'm hoping our Mary is here, because she's working on one too, and I would love to see the picture of hers. So anyway, it's been a very busy week. I have been cutting stuff out like a fiend. This starting tomorrow, 10 a.m., I'm going to be here every day this week for the class. Don't forget, on Tuesday, I won't be here till 11:30 because I'm having another CT scan to see what my kidney stone is doing. And that's important because I only have one kidney. And if the kidney stone blocks things up, I will be in crisis. So we want to avoid that. So I'm hoping, I don't know. I feel like they're probably going to find it still there. But we'll see. So Tuesday morning will start at 11:30. I've got to be at the hospital at 8 a.m. Anybody that knows me knows I turn over at 8 a.m. and go back to sleep. I don't wake up at 7 a.m., but I will do it. So, okay, let me grab my agenda so I can at least be looking this way. I made sure my edges were straight. Then I used invisible threads, sewed diagonal lines every 5/8 of an inch. Yep, okay, I covered all of that. So, let me see who's here because I'm excited. I have seen some names pop up. I'm thrilled. So, here we go. All right. Mare, hi, first person here. And Debbie's here. Charlene Lawson, so good to see you, sweetheart. Cheryl Hogan is here. How good. Oh, last week you were camping. Well, you know, don't worry. I always say real life is more important than watching YouTube. So good for you. The YouTube videos are always here. So don't worry. There's plenty of time for you to come back and catch up. So, and Mare's here. Yes, I camped every year of my life except 2 from the time I was maybe 5 or 6. So camping is very special to me. It's just getting a little harder to do it. So I'm kind of thinking, wouldn't it be nice to rent a house? So that's where I am. But, okay, let's see who else. Lisa's quilting. I am so tickled to see Lisa. I dropped her a little note and said, we're still missing you, but I'm hoping her work is settling down a little because that Lisa is a hard worker. And remember last year, was it just a year ago or 2 years ago that the terrible hurricane came through? I kind of lose track of, there's so many of these terrible, terrible, terrible storms. But Mitty is here. Hi, Mitty. And there's our Hopi. I just love calling you Hopi. I hope that's okay. But I've had a good time just starting to get to know our Hope. So from Canada. And if things don't get better, Mark and I are going to move there. I don't know if they'd have me, but I tell you what, it's got to be better than this. So, Kathy Klein, hi Kathy, and there's that boomerang. I gotta tell you, I want to brag on him a little bit. He's gonna groan. I can hear him up there, I'm sure, groaning. But he has spent so many hours this week. I know last weekend it was a little bit of stressful, the retirement transition and all of that. But this week, he has worked so hard on making the paper bead rollers, on getting the OBS set up so that when I start teaching this week, I can use OBS on the free Jitsi format. And that way I can show you photos, I can show you close-ups of doing the actual work. He has worked, I would say his main focus has been this show all week long. So I just want to give him a little way to go. And it is so good. That Andy guy is amazing. So glad to see him. I don't know if you remember, but he's my daughter's boyfriend who we adore. So, and Meltem from Turkey. I hope you won't mind, Meltem, but I'd like to show them the photos and the video that you took of the Hagia Sophia Mosque that's from the 1400s. It was built, and it's just so touching. And the fact that for quite a while it wasn't allowed to be used as a mosque. In the last 5 years, it has. So it's just a very special building. it's more than a building. It's a very special drawing place for the Turkish people. And to me, it was so exciting for Meltem to take and share these pictures and video for us. And she even did some of the call to prayer, which to actually hear it in that language was, and singing was amazing. But this is one of the birthplaces of civilization, so it's fabulous to see. Okay, now let me see. Oh, and what's so nice is Lisa can speak to Meltem in her native language, which I love. I just love. It always kind of gets me gefletched. So Marcia's here. Marcia got good news. I'm going to be sending one of these bead rollers your way this week. I'm going to make sure I do. So I love it. I love it. Welcome, everyone. Mayor, I'm hoping I covered everyone because you all mean so much to me. Okay, just wanted to let you know, I know that I'm trying to get things finished this year. I haven't had any time to work on my daughter Katie's wedding quilt in the last couple weeks, but I want to get back to it. It's all sitting there ready. My sparrow quilt where I'm doing the applique borders, I've gotten all the leaves done, the stems done, everything except I need to finish the cherries. I'm putting little groups of cherries. But when I have any time at night, I'm sewing on that. Okay, and you know for applique, I'm a huge fan of silk thread because silk thread just kind of sinks into the fabric and you can hardly see it. I know silk thread is supposed to be very strong, but if you pull too hard, it will break. All right, so now let's talk about these bead holders. And have I? Yep, I sure have. And it took it all apart because the 4 square. Okay, I will soon. We're going to talk about this first. And then we'll talk about the class. And I'll show you, I brought all my stuff down, the blocks I made, everything. Okay, so we found out from Rainbow Lane, if you at all are interested in paper bead making, Rainbow Lane is your place to check out. She's the most generous, lovely English lady who puts patterns for her papers and things on the site free. She's such a generous woman. Some years ago, I bought my bead rolling tool from her, and it was altogether with shipping. It was $34 because shipping's at least 14 of it. So she said she's not going to make them anymore, but she gave us a hint on how we could make them. So we looked up the hint of where she gets her handles and where she gets her pins. And unfortunately, to have them sent from England, we're right back to expensive. So what I want to show you, let me get my close-up camera, and I'm going to show you. Let me see how I can turn it. I love this thing. All right. Now, hopefully it will work. And we've been noticing lately that sometimes this wire kind of gets a little squidgy. All right, here is my close-up. All right, so you would never know it, but to make a paper bead, let me just show you real quick. It helps to have a place to put the paper in, so that when you start to roll it, now I usually put it in that slot and then hold it, and once you start rolling it, it holds onto the paper. So you need something that's round, that will give you the size that you want for your bead when it's done, which, just to let you know, we got 2 sizes here. This is the biggest one people usually use. This one's one size smaller. Believe it or not, that's only one size smaller. I don't like making beads with anything smaller than this because they're just too hard to string up. Now, what makes this special? This is called a tensioning dowel, and it's made for metal work. It's when you want to hold two pieces of metal together, you push this in, and because it has this gap, it will adjust to whatever size the hole is, within reason. So this is not made for bead rolling, not at all. But guess what? It is wonderful for bead rolling. So here is, there's the smaller one, here is the bigger one, okay? Now, if you want, you could tap this a little bit to make this slot just a little narrower. Sometimes it allows the bead paper to come out, but it is so, so, so good. And, oh yeah, I'll definitely get into that. So, don't worry, we'll talk about tomorrow's class. But anyway, these work wonderfully, and I paid more and got them from China, but paid more so that they could be stainless steel. So many of the bead rollers out there are just steel, and they're not stainless. The problem with that is you're going to be using glue, and they're going to be getting wet. The papers get a little bit wet. And then if that bead sticks and won't come off easily, yeah, don't worry. I'll definitely show you so you'll see. Because I gave all new cutting sizes for the class. So don't worry. We're going to be right here with you. All right. So what I love too is I made sure to get the longest dowel possible. Or pin, you might want to call them a pin, but I decided to get the longest one possible because you can make beads this entire length, and normally they come in real short ones, and then that means you're limited in the kind of beads you can make. So we've got the smaller dowel, we've got the larger dowel, we got these wonderful handles that are finished wood. And wood is just, it feels so good on the hand. It has a soft kind of feel. And so we've got 10 of these. I'm keeping 2, so that means we have 8. Oh, actually 7. One goes to Marsha, but these bead rollers, I'm going to charge $10 a piece plus shipping, and I'm going to try to keep the shipping down to just a couple dollars. I'm going to find how I can pack them. So, and you will only pay actual shipping, because I have plenty of stuff packed that I have saved from other things. So now, just to show you this, then we'll go to the class information. All right. Here's one of the papers. Now, I printed this off my printer, and it's one of Rainbow Lane Jilly's designs, and it's just beautiful. So this is how you do it. So you can print it off, and then I'm also going to show you how to use junk mail to make pretty beads, because most of the time I use junk mail. All right, so you take this bead roller, and I'm using the bigger one, and you put the paper in it like this, and then while you're kind of holding it, oops, make sure it goes in. If you have a problem having it stick in the slot, you can always fold it, just fold a little touch over, and then put that in the slot, and that will help it hold. See how much easier that is? Then you just start rolling, and you try to keep it equidistant. This is going to make a tapered bead, and you just kind of keep rolling, keeping it even from the edges. Some people only put glue at the end, but I like starting up a little higher because come on glue, This is a glue I haven't used in a while, but I just use good old school glue. And I like taking and putting a thin little line of glue for a good ways. And that way I feel like it makes it a more stable bead. Then I put my thumb on top of the glue, on top of the paper, and smooth it down as I go. And then I take the fingers with the glue and just kind of run it over the bead. Now, this being stainless steel means, look, you can peel it right off and there is your bead. And once you put a couple layers of an acrylic sealer on here, that's going to be really pretty. And they're lightweight. They just work really well when you make necklaces or scissor fobs or key ring holders. There's just a lot of little, you can put them on quilts, whatever. So, and now I'm going to make one with a smaller, with the smaller of the tips. So you'll see what the difference is. The larger one is called an M5. The smaller one's called an M4. And that's just the, I don't know if it's the circumference or the diameter of the dowel. So this one started very easy because because of its size, it has a naturally thinner slot. But I was so tickled. This company was wonderful. They were called Chinese Tools, and that's where all this stuff is made, and I was so happy to get them. So now I've got the glue on, I'm running my thumb along, and then rub the last of the glue. Don't rub too much wet on here because this is from the printer. It's just the water-based ink, printer ink. So there you go. And when you do put the liquid sealer on it, don't over rub it. Make sure you have plenty of sealer on the brush and just do one swipe there, one swipe. If you go back and forth a lot until the first layer of sealer is on good, then it will bleed. Now here is the diameter for each bead, so you can see the difference. And there they are. Okay, so I just thought I would show you. I'm going to do a bigger bead, a beadorama coming up soon after the class is done. So anyway, just thought I would show you about these. And the reason I'm selling them is not because I want to make money. It's because when you buy the tips, you get them in groups of 10. So we got 20 of these things. So I said, well, I'll order 10 handles and then see if anybody would like these. So, okay. So that is the paper bead rollers, and you just let me know if you're interested. They are very, oh, wait a minute. I wanted to show you one more thing. This is a piece of junk mail I got in the mail. So for something like this, often I'll make these into barrel beads, and I love hand cutting. There's something very comforting about hand cutting. So now I'll show you how I just turn a piece of junk mail. What I'm looking for is that color. And you only need color. For a barrel bead, you only need color on the last 1.5 inches of paper. And so now I've rolled most of it. I come in here with a little bit of glue. Then I rub my thumb on it and roll the bead like this. Whoops, I want to make sure it ends nice and straight. Let me put a touch more glue. Now you could, if you have a really good glue stick, that's great too. but I find the school glue is the cheapest. But now you have a nice dark blue bead. So that's why I love, no problem, Marcia, I love junk mail, because you can turn what is normally trash into a bead. I do this because I have to keep my hands busy, and I always was bothered with throwing away so much beautiful mail. I mean, some of the envelopes are so pretty, and I just hated putting all that in the trash. Now, once I make the beads, if I don't find a good use for them, I'm probably gonna have to throw some away, but that's all right. It keeps my hands busy. All right, so now I'm going to come back to the main screen, and let's talk about this block and what is giving people some problems. And that's a good reason to not work ahead, because I'm sewing, let me get this back. I'm sewing this quilt before you so that I can catch and understand exactly how this works. And if you sew ahead, then you're liable to run into problems. Like I ran into a problem. This is the sashing block, okay? This is the sashing block. Do you notice how the white paper shows through? Now, the good news is, if you notice where it's sewn, we're over the stitching line, but the black pieces are short of a full seam allowance. So that's why I wrote and told you, guys, there's a little bit of a problem that I'm so cheap, let me tell you. How cheap is she? Pretty cheap. And I knew that I would probably undersize the cutting instructions, because I hate to waste fabric. But I hate worse to waste time. So I'm gonna just start showing. In fact, you know what? I'm going to sit right here and do a close-up camera. Let me move things I don't need and get ready to show you what I think will answer all of your questions. Okay, so I'll put this here for right now, and that'll go with this because I want to show you how to cut. You don't have to worry about cutting. I first thought, okay, every time we make a new block, we'll have to trim it to a certain size. You don't. Paper piecing takes that need away. So let me show you. There's only one block that you need to trim to a certain size before you sew more onto it. Only one block. Okay. So, I am going to sew. I wasn't sure if I had to sew today, but I do. Okay. So, let me change the camera. Bring it back over. I'm loving this OBS system and having the extra camera. It is so exciting. All right, it makes the job so much easier. Okay, here we are. So I realized when I got to here that when I told you to cut a certain size square, cut it in half diagonally so you had two triangles, that I was too stingy with the fabric. And see how this just makes it harder to when you put pieces together. And I want this to be simple. Now, you've printed out your patterns. I told you that I added the seam allowance, which I didn't need to. It kind of got added double because the EQ8 system that I used to design it adds the seam allowances already. And it was a long day when I was working on it, and I didn't print it out until 2 a.m., so I was kind of tired. But here we go. So I then made a brand new printing sheet and told everyone, throw away the old one, print out the new one, or write it down, the numbers for the new one. And I made everything at least a ½ inch bigger so you would not have that problem. And it worked. It worked beautifully. Here is the diamond sashing block. Here is the snail's trail block. Now what I want to show you is this quilt only has 3 blocks to make this whole amazing complicated looking quilt. Okay, it has the snail's trail block, which is what this is. It has the sashing square, which is what this is, and then it has a mess of these diamond sashing blocks, and that's what this is. The reason I made a paper piecing program is because I did not want to spend $60 to get the 2 specialty rulers that this pattern called for. And if I was sure that I was going to make a whole bunch of these quilts, no problem. But this ruler was $32.99 and this ruler was $27.99, and I'm sorry, I just, not right now, can't do it. So I love this pattern. Was designed by Jean Ann Wright. I love it, love it, love it. It is really based on a storm at sea type pattern with the snail's trail insert. So I said, there's got to be a better way. Here are your borders right there, which is 1 sashing square, 1 sashing diamond. So between that and this block right here, that's all you need besides just a strip of border to make this whole quilt. As you see, it's divided into sections, 4-piece sections. These are 4 snail's trail blocks turned so that they make the design they do. Then here are your diamond sashing. Here is your square sashing, square. So you'll make these 4 sections, and actually it's not going to be hard. So now let me show you some more. Okay, so I solved the problem by making all these. This was not a problem, it was just this outside piece. But redid the cutting sheet. Anyone who wants any of, let me quickly type in our, whoops, no, I gotta click on it first. I'm gonna give you my email address. Oh, you're gonna go to China and Turkey. That's wonderful, Lisa. Okay, here's my email address. Time 2 quilt at gmail.com. And what you can email me. I will send you all of the changes I made to this pattern. So, and if you want to join the class, even if you aren't a free member of our groups IO, I will send you a link to join our class. Our classes will be recorded so that you can catch up if you can't be there. The classes are going to run every day except Tuesday, 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. We're going to take about a half an hour, 45 minutes, an hour or something. We'll talk about it during the class every day for lunch, give you a little break. But Tuesday, I don't start until 11:30. Sorry about that. But it's a Jitsi format. It's wonderful. You don't have to type. You can just sit and talk. You can see each other. Oh, thank you, Marcia. Thank you. And so I had decided with this pattern, I wanted it bright, busy, a lot. It has, to me, a Moroccan type look. I don't know about y'all, but it just has kind of a Middle Eastern, Moroccan kind of look. So I wanted to go with a lot of color. I put my background, I made it black because I wanted to do something really different. And so, anyway, these pieces, I'm going to make 25 of the sashing square blocks, okay? Then, thank goodness, this block is so easy to make. Here is the paper piecing, and you have to make 40 of these, but it's very easy. Luckily, this one's a lot more complex. I had to take mine apart today. If you ever see little like thread blips, that's because I had to take the thing apart. But did you know if you have a Fons and Porter seam ripper or a good eraser, they will help pull those little thread bits out for you, or else just use a tweezer. Okay, I would suggest, if you're going to make it with a white background, that you use an off-white or ivory or cream color, because that tends to not be as shocking as a pure white. Pure white is like glaring compared to this. Me too, Marcia. Now, if you are going to use any kind of dark blue or dark background, I would suggest you use a darker gray, because I'm using a black background, but that black is more startling than this gray, and that black, the black would show up much stronger on the color. See how the black shows, but this gray piece right here hardly shows. So when I do my piecing, I use either cream if it's white or gray. And this time, because it's black, I'm using a darker gray. So hopefully that makes sense to you. And the first thing I would do also is I would fill up about 6 or 8 bobbins, because it's all fun and games until that bobbin runs out. And when you get in the zone, you will resent having to stop to figure out a bobbin. All right, here is my cutting sheet with the correct new sizes. What I do is, as I cut, I mark things off, put little checks by them. If it's a certain number of things and I'm cutting a lot at one time, I'll keep a running total. And just so you know, I probably, for this block right here, I probably cut twice as much of the colored, not the background, but twice as much of these as I needed to. Not the center, I'm sorry, let me tell you about that. But of these, I probably cut twice as much as I needed, because I want to have the flexibility of deciding what colors to go where. And so just so you know, I cut extra because I can always use them, put them in my bag of scraps for hand embroidery, since they are some really cool fabrics. All right, now let's go back to the beginning. I wanted to choose fabrics that had a strong voice. This was not the place for me to use pastels. Pastels would be fine if I wanted to use a lighter background, or maybe even more of a contrast with a darker background. Then, one thing I decided, ladies, I made a big decision, and I haven't told you this yet. All of my sashing squares are going to be identical. Okay? All of my sashing squares are identical. I decided, in looking at this pattern, I noticed that they had theirs all identical. And you know, I'm a big believer in, when you make a quilt, have a place for the eye to rest. In a busy quilt, your eye just gets exhausted. But if you have certain things that are repetitive, it can calm down a busy quilt. The other thing I decided to have the same is the little centers of the snail trails. So let me show you that. These, 25 of these, will all be the same. In the same order, everything. All the same. And I chose the fabrics out of the colors in my center fabric. The reason I picked this for my center is it's kind of a delicate print, And I thought, you know what, in a block like this, it's going to be lost. And to me, it's too special. There's something about this I love. So what I did is said, well then, I'll just pull from it reds, yellows, oranges, pinks, greens, golds. I'll pull all that from fabrics to go with this block. Then I made a decision that the center of the snail's trail. Now you don't have to do this. I'm just telling you why I'm doing it so you might notice. I decided to use, since I'm concentrating on rainbow colors inside this quilt, I found this very busy fabric that has all the colors of the rainbow, and then this orange just jumped at me, so I put those two. And oranges and yellows aren't something I normally use. So these are going to be the center of all 16 of my Snail's Trail blocks. Then I did just 2 of every fabric that I had used to have more than enough to do my 40 blocks of this. Okay, so now I took, let me show you that. I've got an exam. I tried to be very careful, make sure I had everything to show you. All right, so I made these up a couple days ago. And when you cut 2 inches, 2 inches, 2 inches, 2 inches, and you sewed them together. First, I sewed this to this, I sewed this to this, then I put them together right here, then I flattened the seam. Now if you know how to do that Bonnie Hunter, you know, opening this and flaring it out, go ahead and do it. I have never been able to figure that out. But then I said, okay, now I need to know how to cut this down to put it here. And let me grab another ruler. Okay, let's switch one. Okay, so I'm going to show you this. The pattern said cut this to 2.5. But if you, let me see if I can bring some more light over here and bring this down. If you look, I'm putting this right here, and 2.5 only leaves 3/16 of a seam allowance divided over 2 pieces. So I right then said, okay, bring this to the edge with a 1/4 inch there and a 1/4 inch here. Make this block, cut it down to 2 3/4. Now, if you had cut it down to 2.5, you can still use it, but you're going to have to bring this part in just a little bit to make sure you can grab it. Know that when you're doing paper piece patterns, you need a small stitch length, 1.8, because if it's 1.8, it will hold better, because don't forget, you will need to, when this block is done, you need to come in here and peel away. You need to peel away the paper. Okay, now you're not going to do this until all these blocks are then sewn together, because if you did this earlier than that, then blocks are going to stretch out of shape. I was going to try to get under here and tear some paper off, but I think I'm going to tear the fabric if I'm not careful. But what I wanted to show you too, and we'll talk about this more in class, one thing I found out recently is start tearing the paper in the middle and then pulling it each way. It's much gentler on the seams, on the sewing seams, than if you just take one edge and pull it all the way across. But we'll talk about different ways to get the paper off easily. Alright, so please mark on your pattern that this is to be cut to 2 3/4. Now, I then said, okay, And I cut a whole bunch, 2 3/4. But one thing I want to show you, let me see if I can find the block. I cut one of these, I think it's this one. I cut this wrong, and I'm going to show you how I did that. Because I made just 16 of these center blocks, and I may have to repeat that one. Alright, so let me show you how you cut these blocks much easier. And then, don't worry, Mary, we'll come back and talk about the other blocks and how they fit. Okay, sweetie? Alright, now, what I did, I said, okay, I don't want to start on the end of this ruler, because I thought, I've got to cut these 2 3/4. So I said, well, I don't want to start at the end. Let me move in a little bit. So I said, okay, I'll start at 2. So I need the block that's now 3 and something inches, and I need it to then turn into 2 3/4. How in the world do you know what is half of 2 3/4? So I will take this blue painter's tape, or you can take masking tape, and I will put it right there at number 2. Then I want the block to be a total of 2 3/4. So I come over here to 4 3/4, and I mark this. Now you can do this on your cutting mat too. If you don't have one of these slotted rulers, you can mark your cutting mat. And then you could have a straight ruler that you do to protect your fingers. Alright, so then I decided, okay, I'm not that much of a math whiz, but I said 2 to 4 3/4. Okay, what's half of that? I said, well, 2 1/2 would be 1 1/4. So 2 3/4, that means you have a quarter that you have to divide in half. So then what I did is came in here, and this might be hard to have. Maybe I'll put it down here. I'll put it a little bit out of the way, because if I had a see-through tape that showed, you know how they used to make those orange and yellow tapes. But what I'm doing is I have to, the middle line for this block is right in the middle of this quarter seam right there. Okay, so I divided that quarter in half and put the tape in. So now, let me show you how that does work. Because if you have the center of these two lined up, see this right here? Line this up halfway through here. Then you, whoops, let me see. This one might be the one I cut slightly wrong. But let me show you this. One of them, I was looking at it and I thought it should be right, but it doesn't look right. Well, that should have stopped me. So now I put this seam right down the middle of this 1/4 inch part, and then this shows me these other two tapes show me where to cut. So here's the tape right on this one, and make sure that's right in the middle of that 1/4 inch. Okay, it goes right down the middle. So I come in here and cut where that tape is. Then I come over here and cut where this tape is. And then look what happens. Perfect. Now I'm going to turn this way so I can get it right this size. Because 2 3/4 can be a little tricky. This is nice because I don't have to reinvent the wheel each time. I just place it in, and make sure the seam is right down the middle here, right down the middle. Then I come back in with my cutter, and I make a cut on either side, and then see how what I cut off is equal, and there you go. Now you have a 2 3/4, and I'll show you 2 3/4 right there. So there we go. That's how it's very, very easy to cut. So I'll do it one more time to show you. I saved 2 aside that were uncut, but there was one. What I wanted to tell you to make sure, if you're getting ready to cut and something doesn't look right, put it all down, start again, because when I cut it anyway, I was in a hurry. I was trying to get ready to go to do the show. I was in a hurry, and I should have taken my time. So this piece of tape just reminds me, line the seam up halfway, this vertical. And if I line up a line here with the bottom of the block, I can, if I line it up with the bottom of the block here, then I know I'm square. Okay, so and then this, whoops, you know what, that block is a little bit off. Okay, so I'm going to go with this. I can always trim the bottom. Alright, so now it's lined up here, lined up right in the middle. I cut on this 2-inch line and this 4 3/4 inch line, and you'll notice that my seam allowances are pretty much the same. Now, when I go to turn it, that will straighten that piece that's too long, because when you turn it, you'll know that everything is right. Okay, bring this down. This, whoops, this has to be halfway, because half of 2 3/4 is 1 1 1 1/4. I would have to get into eighths. Would it be 1 3/8? I don't know, something like that. Okay, yeah, I think it is 1 3/8. So let me see. Oh, that's right. I only cut on either side. So I go up here, go up here. Sometimes I tell you what, you've really got to stay focused. And there is a perfectly cut 2 3/4. You can see down here, 2 3/4 inch block. Okay, so that's just a little trick. But do me a favor, when you're done making these cuts, peel the tape off. I tend to get busy and forget to peel the tape off, and by the time I do it, it leaves a nasty residue behind. So cut the tape, take the tape off soon as you are done with that process. Okay. Those slotted rulers are wonderful, but you can do the same thing by taping off your cutting mat. You could put a piece of tape right here by the 2 and another piece right here by 4 3/4, and you could put a little piece right in the middle, which would be right there. Put another, and that's 1 2 3 4 5 6 eighths, 5 eighths. Wait a minute. 5 16ths. 1 2 3. Yeah, let me see. 1 2 4. Okay, right there. So that would be 1 2 3 eighths. 1 3/8 is half of 2 3/4. Okay, now let me see. So make sure this is the new cutting sheet. So these are all bumped up, and boy does it make it nice. All of these numbers I bumped up. Not that one, but this one I bumped up. And now, if you didn't, you can still use them, but it's going to leave you, you got to be really careful, and it's going to leave you short, a little short on your seam allowance. Okay. How do you cut using the thread cutting mat? Okay, let me show you. So, same thing. The same thing. And let me get it. Okay. So here, for some reason, I just like using the 2 inches. I'll put that there for 2 inches. Then I put this one at the 4 3/4 because you need the block 2 3/4. Okay, here we go. So now this block will be 2 3/4. See? Perfect. Now you need to know where the half is, because when this was big, if you had it moved off, you need to know where's half between this point. That's the important one. So if it's 2 3/4, half of 2 1/2 would be 1 1/4. But you've got that other quarter to mess with, so that's where you're going to come in here. I'm going to put this one down here so you can see what you're doing. But this one would be 1 1/4, and then half of this quarter here. Because see, here's 1 1/4, and you need that little one right there because it's half of this next quarter. Okay? So now if you look, if you put this here, see how you line this up with the seam allowance? Then you come in here with your ruler and you put your, let me get it straight. Then you come in with your ruler and you cut right along there. Okay? Now you would have a big enough ruler, it would hold it. I'm going to turn it around to cut the other side, making sure that the center of the block lines up with your middle tape. And come over here, making sure, yeah, there we go. And put it right along the edge of this tape and cut again. And there you go. Now you have the perfect block. This is just a little helper to make it a little bit easier for you. Now, some of you might have little blocks. Let me check for one real quick up here. But this is the only one that you really have to double check the size. So, let me see. I have another one a little bit smaller, but it's probably in one of my, in fact, look at this. Remember what I told you about not leaving the tape on? Because then when you go to take it off one day down the road, you're probably going to have a sticky, stained mess. You don't want that. So let me get this tape off before I put new tape on. Let's say you've got this little ruler. Okay. Alright, this is looks like 4-inch ruler. Alright, so what I'm going to do on this is put one of these at 1, 2, this is supposed to, wait a minute, this is supposed to end up 2 3/4. Okay, so here's the 3/4 mark right here. I'm going to put this on here. This time I'm going to put it on the little ruler. Okay. Then I'm going to, you already know this is the other edge. Okay, so this is how wide it's going to be. Now you need to know how deep to put it. So start it down at the bottom. 1, 2 3/4, and put your next piece of tape right here. And when you have to cut numerous, it really does help to have this. So, luckily, this has this diagonal line. Let's see how we can use that. Now I don't see where that diagonal line is going to help you. So we want to put a mark for right in the center. So we know half of 2 3/4 is 1 and, wait a minute, 2 3/4, because half of 2 1/2 is 1 1/4, and we want to put the tape right, here's 1 1/4, so here's the next quarter, you want the tape right there, so it's right where this yellow highlight line is. So I'm only going to put it down here so it doesn't cover up the whole thing. You don't want to put the tape all the way up because then you won't be able to see a seam. So when you do it this way, yep, it lines up with this edge, lines up with this edge, and see this is trying to tell you 1 1/4. Oh, I don't have this, let me see. 1 1/4, 1 1/4 is equals 2 1/2, and then, okay, yeah, it's okay. It is right on that yellow line. Okay, so let me bring it back down, right? 1, because 1 1/4. Oops, nope, I didn't have it on the right line. That's why it didn't line up. You've got to look at 1. There's the quarter marker, and then you want that next little tick. So it's this little tick. Alright, so then when you put your block down, this is where you want to line this up. And if you put it on here, then you cut this side and this side. Then you turn it around to here, line this up with your center seam, then cut this side and cut that side. So now I've shown you 3 ways to do it. You see what I'm saying? 3 ways to do it. Now, so then when this is 2 3/4, I have a pattern piece, okay? This is the trickiest part, and we're going to cover this in class. But now you take and you put your piece here. You'll notice it has a wonderful 1/4 inch seam allowance all the way around. What you're going to want to do, and especially for me with having this background black, is you have to pay attention to what comes next. If you want, get a pen to mark it, and I am learning to put this fabric always in this position, because then when I do it, they'll all come out correct, okay? So in this position, I have my colored blocks here and here, my background here and here, okay? So that means that this up here needs to be background. So I can put B for background, but for me it's going to be, this is going to be black. That means directly across it's also going to be background. Okay? So that means the next colors that happen, because see here is your little 4 patch. Let me bring it in a little closer. Okay, this camera doesn't show perfect. It gets a little fuzzy close in. But see how you have your 2 colors here and the background here? But so I always put this certain color here, then I know that is background, this is background. Okay? So that's why I mark background, background. I'm going to put P for print and P for print, because you have 2 of one type fabric, 2 of the others. So now, then when you finish, this is really important or you won't get that snail's trail curl. So now you've got the background print. The next round, This one's going to be background, and this one, the one opposite. So here is background, here is background. Then print, then print. So now go back and look at this again. And the next round, you have color right ahead. So P for print, P for print, and background, and background. Okay? And then background here, and background here. Opposite, then P for print, P for print. So it may help you to do this when you get ready to start. But I would put this, your cut down piece there, so you have a reference. When these are made this way, when you go to piece them into the 4-piece blocks, you're going to rotate them. But you make every block with the same pattern, and you'll just turn it, and that will give the wonderful design. But these are all going to be, all this around here is going to be, what do you call it? Scrappy. This is all going to be scrappy. The only thing that's going to be consistent out here is the background. Whoops, background. And just remember, they're always opposite. But by having this mark, now I know, oh, put a black one here and a black one there. If your background is white, you'd put a white one here and a white one there. You see, it just kind of helps. And you can do this piece by piece as you go. That way, because if you turn this way, then the block's going to be wrong. You see what I'm saying? The block is going to be wrong. So when you start, pick which print is going to be up here. It's got to be going, the prints have to be going this way, backgrounds have to be going that way. And just all you have to do is just follow this little, whoop, right there. Follow that little block. Okay? So I'm not seeing where something's not. If this is the right size and you've cut these, the size of the paper I gave the other day, I think I did it on Thursday. Whoops, not that. Where is it? Here it is. Because if the next block is 3 inches cut in half, you'll have plenty of big enough piece. Then 3 3/4 cut in half, plenty. And the background's the same thing. 4 3/4 cut in half, diagonally, plenty. You'll have plenty of room. So, if you have more questions, how big are the 4-patch when done? These are 2 3/4. So, this 2 3/4. The reason we're not papered, that's a good question, Polly, and good question, Debbie. So this is 2 3/4. I'm going to write it right here. 2 3/4. 2 3/4 inches. Okay? Now, it's going to start out much bigger, and you cut it down. The reason we're not paper piecing this center is there is no way to paper piece this. When you paper piece, each piece has to overlap another one. Where would you start? If you put your first piece here, then you have to put this on and flip it. Well, then where do you go next? Do you try to do this? I'm not sure. You might be able to do it like this, but I don't think that works. I think if you had a solid, it's very easy to do with a solid, because this piece overlaps, this piece overlaps that one, this overlaps that one, that overlaps. But I'm not sure you can do it in a square like this, because the way, yeah, I know why. Let's say you glued a square here, then you put this one on and it overlapped that one. That's good. Then you could put this one on, it'll overlap this one. But then if you put this one on, it has to overlap here and here. And that's not possible. It's not possible. So that's why it's like, start out making your 4-patch, then consider this one piece of fabric. One piece of fabric. Also, if you will notice, place it where it directly, the seam allowance directly intersects from diagonal to diagonal. So, I use for my very first piece, now you have to put the fabric on the back of the paper. But since I've already folded it, remember how I told y'all to sit and fold these? See how it's folded? That shows you exactly where the first piece is going to go. And then I take and put some glue there. Okay? Now what I do is I look down to this point here and this point here. And if you want, take and put a ruler between your points, because see, you've already folded the fabric on all those lines. So this way you can line it up to make sure it's square. And there we go. And if you want to, put a ruler this way to make sure this is square. See what I'm saying? Then when you go to put the next piece of fabric on, let me pretend this is the next piece of fabric. Then what you do is you lay it here. Make sure this point lines up with this line. That way you know you're right where you should be. And I recommend, if you haven't done paper piecing in the last couple weeks, that you go ahead and pin this. Then you will be turning it over before you sew. Remember, it's like everything's backwards. So that's why it helps if you have this pin. Then you turn it over and you stitch along this line. Okay? You stitch right along. You stitch on this side. You put your fabric on that side. Okay? So you stitch. You put your fabric on this side with no lines, and that gets scary sometimes. That's why I made sure to make plenty of fabric here. Then you stitch along this line, and you start 1/4 of an inch early, and you end 1/4 of an inch late. And your stitch length is 1.8. It's a tiny stitch length. It's 1.8 because when you tear off that paper, you want those stitches to hold good. You want them to hold real good. Oh, it's really raining outside. So then once you stitch this, then when you take the pin out and you fold it over, you've got plenty to cover the seam allowance for the next time. And every time you sew one, press it. Or since you sew them opposite, you could press them once you get each one on. Then press it really good. But you see what you're doing? So all these edges are tucked under here. And that'll happen on this side. Then this one here and this one here will tuck in all of these edges. So it works really good, and we're going to do it step by step. I'm going to do it with you. You will not have to worry. So hopefully this makes sense. And as you see in this one, remember I said you've got that color there. Then you know background, background. Then you know print, print. Then you go background, background, print, print. But you have to follow the pattern right, or you won't have. Look at this. This black really shows the snail's trail. The snail comes in here and goes right through here. Over here, he comes in here and goes right through here. So that's really neat. So you'll have one like this. Then the next one might be this way. We'll follow the pattern and see. But all you're going to have to do is just turn this to get the design. But you make them all the same. All right. So, and I put some measurements just to show you, but you don't have to. Only one you have to cut to the right size is here. Then when all these fabrics are sewn and folded back, and you see how they all fit beautifully, then you'll come on the back of this and trim off any excess. Here is the actual sewing line where you're going to sew the blocks together along this line. That's your sewing allowance. You'll go along this outer piece and you'll trim all the fabric back so you have something nice and neat. Now, I'm going to go ahead and show you. I'm going to show you an easy block. Tomorrow when we start out, we're going to be making these first. We'll make some of these. Then we're going to switch to making these, because these are the simplest ones. They're very, very straightforward. So I have cut this 9 inches long by 5 inches wide. Here is the pattern. It's already been folded. See how easily it goes back? That is so important. I was folding until my fingers were all shiny. I had worn down my fingerprints. So, okay. So since the fabric goes on the back, we turn it over. We put our glue here. I'm going to put a cross of glue right there. Okay? I like doing this instead of pinning because I always end up sticking myself. Look at this is a batik, but I like to look at it and see which side do I like best. And I think I like this side best. They are not identical, and so I get picky. Okay, and it went on, so the fabric's in the right place. So now what you could do, this is up to you, but what you could do right here is, you see how I flip the fabric back? And then you could come along here. Now I'm going to eyeball it, but cut it roughly 1/4 of an inch longer than this where the paper's folded. But if you want to sew the other piece on first and then trim it, you could do that too. But I'm going to just come eyeball this. Now there's add 1/4 rulers you can use, or you can just come in here with a regular ruler and put it about 1/4 of an inch. Oh, in fact, you know what I did? I had added tape to this so it acts like an add 1/4 ruler. And just come in, trim that. Then one more side. Come in, put this ruler so it's, you folded the paper back, cut it 1/4, leave 1/4 of an inch seam allowance. So there we go. Okay, so now this is ready to sew. Here are my 4 background pieces. Now what I'm going to do is get you in here so you can see what I'm doing. All right. So, all right. Now this you have to be a little bit tricky with too. Luckily your background, it's black on both sides. This is how it's going to finish. Can you see how, whoops, oh sorry, I had it on the sewing machine. Okay, this is how it's going to look when it's finished. So put it down and go, yep, it's supposed to be like that. So then what you do when you know this is the right position, you flip it. You line these edges up. You have it where it pokes out over here and it pokes out over there. About the same amount. Okay, not a big thing. And just to make sure, I'm going to put a pin well enough away from where I'm going to sew. Never have any part of the pin near, see this fold line? This way you can check just where you are and then you'll see the fold. So now I'm going to bring it over to the machine, and this is the line I'm sewing on. So, and you can follow the numbers. I just picked it up to sew. But now I'll show you what I'm doing here. And this one, I need to turn this down to 1.8. And you start sewing 1/4 of an inch ahead, and I'm going to sew 1/4 of an inch after. There we go. So you sew all the way off. Then when I bring this back over, okay, bring this up a little. Bring this back over, and what I'm going to do right now is just finger press. Okay, you can finger press, you can use the edge of your ruler like this. So now you're ready for your next piece of fabric. So you know this is the way it should look to make the diamond, because look, if you tried putting it on like this, there's no way to make it right. It has to be nice and square up here. So if you flip it over, now you have that nice squared look. So once you know this is the way it's supposed to be, then you flip it over and line it up with the other fabric. Have a little hanging out here, about the same amount hanging out over there. Okay, then we put our pin in away from the sewing line. We flip it over, and I'm going to sew this one. Sew it right along on top of that line the best you can. Okay, right on top of that, right on top of that line. Okay, now I take the pin out, I bring it over, I finger press it into place. Very good. See how nice? And you always get good points when you paper piece. So now, turn this around. We're going to do this end. And we put this piece right there. And you can see, whoops, let me bring it up a little. You can see this is the way it fits. If I tried to put it this way, it wouldn't fit. And to try to turn it, nope, doesn't work. So you want a nice square edge. That's the way it's supposed to be. So just flip it, line it up, have it hanging over about the same amount on both. Put a pin far away that just holds it, then bring it over to the sewing machine. And I'm going to sew on this line. And like I say, the back of the paper will say A1, A2, whatever. I'm just showing you this, so I'm not following that, but you get the drift of how you're supposed to do it. Okay, you started early, you ran over. This, in effect, by running over, helps lock the stitches. Take your pin out. Now right here is... you don't need any of this, so you can, whoops, let me get the camera down. Right here, you don't need this, so let me take and just trim that off. It's sticking out in the seam allowance, not necessary. Then you come here, finger press it down. Now I'm going to get ready and do the last piece. And this is sticking out quite a bit, so I'm going to go ahead and take that off too. And this one over here, I'll take this one off too, because they're just a little, and I'll take this one off too. But you don't have to, because you're going to trim it all up again in just a moment. So now I have to make this one fit. Here we go. Here it is. So once I have the fit, then I just take and flip it, line it up with the underneath fabric, have it hanging over about the same distance on each end. Put my pin in well away from where I'm going to sew, because I really don't want to break my sewing machine shaft by hitting a pin. It would really ruin my day. Alright, start early. So start in the seam allowance. And then I stitch right on the line all the way down, come off the paper. There. Okay, so now I've got, look at this. This is so nice and really locks those stitches. Take the pen out and then come here like this. Finger press it, fingernail, ruler, whatever. You can even use the bottom of your scissors like that, anything to press it. Now, as you can see, whoops, as you can see, it looks a little messy. So you just flip it over, make sure it's laying flat. Then you're going to come in here with a ruler and your rotary cutter, and you're going to trim right along that edge. This is your seam allowance right here. So let me pull this up to, I've got just a tiny cutting board here. Okay, there I go. Alright, so now this side is all trimmed. I'll turn it to this end, making sure everything's laying flat, all the pieces are showing. Okay, put the ruler right along the edge of that seam allowance. Trim that. There we go. Next long side, making sure all the fabrics are sticking out like they're supposed to. Line the ruler up and trim it off. And move it down just a touch and trim it off. Okay. Then one last side. We don't have much to trim off on this part. Just a little bit of threads. Okay. And now, when you turn it over, you have a perfect block. All points, side points, end points. Beautiful. Okay. And now we have two of these. We have one of these completed and one of these. So we're getting ready for class tomorrow. All I expect you, or all I would want for you to have done for tomorrow's class. Let's talk about that. And, you know, do what you can. I understand if you had a busy schedule. Okay. So, whoops, let me find my cursor. Come on, cursor. There we go. All right. All I hope that you would have done for this class is have your pieces cut out, as many of them as you can get done, and if I'll be thrilled if your centers are sewn, and trimmed down to 2 3/4. So if your fabric is cut and your centers are sewn, that's great. Cherry on top, and A++ is they're cut down to 2 3/4. And then if you've had a chance to fold most of your papers on the lines, then I will be thrilled. Now, let's say you've been busy and you haven't been watching or paying attention. Understand, life gets busy. Is it too late for you to join in the class? Not a bit. If you're willing to try to do a little bit of catching up, then, or if you're willing to just not get it finished this week, no problem. But it's never too late. And we'd love to have you, and I will do my best to help you catch up. If we live closer, I'd I'd help cut the fabric for you. But anyways, never too late. Now let's say, well, I've got an appointment, I'm going to be busy, you know, then drop in and drop out when you want. I'm going to have these recorded, and that way you can play catch up. And if you just, you know, I can't sit at a sewing machine for, you know, 5 hours a day. I understand. So it'll be recorded, drop in and out as you want. Hopefully you'll learn something, even if you don't make this quilt. Let's say I don't want to make another quilt. It's too much. No problem. Bring something you're working on. Bring some virtual candy to share with the rest of us. And let's just have fun together, because this is a chance for us to get together and play. Have a little fun. Okay? So, if you need... You love foundation. I'm so glad you do. I do too, because, you know, it really helps us have a nice, successful finish. Okay, so don't forget our time to quilt. Whoops. Our time to quilt at gmail.com. Okay. That is my email address. If you need a link to the Juki, if you need a link to the Jitsi, if you need my paper piecing patterns, anything like that. If you just want to join our groups IO, so you'll have all this stuff right on the site, because we have a wealth of files on our site. Everything we've done or I've drawn up a pattern for is on the site. Then just send me an email and say, please sign me up for your... It's like a Yahoo group, but Yahoo is no longer around for doing groups. So it's called Groups.io. It's free. Just come and join us. All right. I'm trying to think. We're going to get ready and do show and tell. So, let's see. You can also use that email if you're interested in getting one of the paper bead rollers. Okay. I've already got Marcia Florums coming to her. Don't worry, Marcia. Took care of that. But for anybody else, they're $10 a piece plus only actual shipping. So I'm try to keep it as cheap as I can, I promise. All right. And when I mail Bonnie's package, I'm going to go ahead and send out Marcia Florums. Okay, let's see. You know the days that we're doing. All right. And then since I'm finishing up the Sunflower Mosaic, our next project after we finish this class is going to be a reverse applique. And I'm trying to find a pattern, something fun that we can do with a real lively background fabric. Then put a fabric on top of that, and there'll be a pattern for you to draw on it with like a chalk pencil or piece of chalk. And what you'll do is you'll cut out the front, tuck it under, and do an applique stitch by machine or hand. And then it'll leave the background showing through. It reminds me of those pictures we did in elementary school, where after we colored a picture, we did heavy black crayon over it, and then took and scraped away the black crayon to reveal the color behind. So that will be our upcoming project. All right, I think now, I don't think there's anything I need to show you. Is there any more questions? So we know that that center 4 patch should be 2 3/4, and okay, and yeah, Mary, I went ahead with their 2-inch center squares, then trimmed them down because it's not that much, and it's not. The beauty in trimming down, Michelle Lang, who was the whole reason I started this group, She would tell me, Deb, make it bigger, trim it down. You don't have the same headaches. If you try to make it the exact size, it's never going to quite work. So make it a little bigger, trim it down, everybody's happy. You will never remember the little scraps you might have wasted, but you'll remember getting something done, and that is a joy. So I agree with that. All right. What kind of ruler? And during class, I've got a couple rulers to show you and to show you why. Let me show you. I've got this one. This is my all-time biggest boondoggle ruler ever. This, about 12 years ago, was $28. And do you notice how beautiful? No scratches, no tape, because I've never used it. It was a ridiculous ruler. It's supposed to be for storm at sea. But it was cumbersome as heck. I said, that's why I'm very picky about what rulers I buy. Because this was $30. I don't know how much the shipping was. So $28 plus whatever. Out the window. I could have just as easily burned the money. Actually, it would be nice if I could have given it to a food bank. So this is why I am a little funny. There are some rulers that are worth their weight in gold, and some rulers that are just a waste of time. So that's why I'm kind of picky. I'm frugal, and so I try to be frugal with your money too. So, okay, let's go now to show and tell. We're ready. Okay, let's see. And then if you have any more questions at all, you just tell me. I can fix it. So, okay. Now let's go and see our show and tell. Okay. All right. I had a lot of people look at the show where I had this picture as the picture on the front of our placeholder. And you know, that's the class I took a few weeks ago. And I haven't had a chance to go finish it, but I cannot wait to share this with you. It is such an exciting and simple, it's another paper pieced pattern. So I'll share mine with you and then tell you where you can get the pattern and see if, you know, she might be giving another class coming up, but that is striking. So I just thought I would tell you that. Okay, Miss Bonnie had a finish this week. Drum roll, please. And, whoops, let me get this bigger. I want the whole thing bigger. Look at this quilt. Now, I remember seeing these blocks coming together, one after another. And look at this. Did I get the doll pictures? Oh, Marcia, I might have. I am so sorry. Is Joso's here? I hope Joso's is here. I didn't see her. But, oh, thank you, Marcia, hon. Thank you. I want you to feel successful. So I won't leave here until you fully understand it. Any class day, if you want me to hang around, you need a little bit more help or you're shy, don't worry. I'm here for you. Because if you can't finish a quilt successfully, then I will have failed. And I don't like to fail. But this is Bonnie's quilt. And guess what, gals? She hand quilted this in wonderful diagonal lines. And someone was asking her, did she quilt it first or applique it first? And I see why they asked, because sometimes I think, would it be easier to quilt the diagonal lines and then put your applique on? The only thing I worry about is would the lines show through the applique. But by doing it by hand, it was so much easier to put the diagonals around the applique than it would be my machine. That starting and stopping on a machine would be a pain. But I think you would join me in saying Bonnie outdid herself. This is a beauty. It is beautiful, and I love the red sashing and the green binding. How pretty. That way she can use it for Christmas if she wishes, or just keep it up all the time. So that's nice. All right, let's see who is next. I don't think I had too much. My Little Birdies on a Wire quilt finally got finished, and let me show you what I did with it. It's awfully nice when you can figure out what to do with one of your quilts. Here it is, right here on our redone guest room. My daughter Becky did an outstanding job of painting the walls and the trim. We bought a new nice sturdy bed for guests. It's a trundle that pulls out. This can move behind the dresser, and then you have a nice big space. So for very little money, we freshened up this room, and I'm really tickled with it. But there is the Birdies on the Wire over there. Then we also did our sunroom, and I painted it in shades of gray that kind of had a hint of blue, so it would go with some of the other things we've done in the house. And I gotta tell you this, we took down the old TV, and that old TV was so heavy. It had been up for 16 years. And Mark said, you know, I would rather buy a new TV than put that heavy thing back up there. So I went and looked, and I said, for $200 you can get a new TV. He said, sold. So, and it is actually a little bit bigger because the screens now are, you know, they have a very narrow border on them. And it was only 16 pounds, which was so much easier. And I have a plant that grows up that wall that we have to get back in place. But I'm real happy with this. So, let's see. But I can remember when TVs were so expensive. So I'm really, really tickled. Okay, now that's about it for me. Although I wanted to show you an EQ8. I said, what would the quilt look like with a black background? And that's where I got the idea from, because I did this color mock-up. But then Mark said, well, what if it looked like ocean or waves? So I did another real quick mock-up of that. So either way, it can be, no matter what colors you use, it can be very striking. So, okay, now let's see who is next. Debbie. Yes, let's see what Debbie has done. You know that every season she decorates her stairway. She's got it, we'll call it a micro gallery. Isn't that nice? And I love it. She can change the scenery and the feeling by her using her wonderful quilts back there. I love that. Okay, now let's see what the next one is, if I can get my cursor. Remember, I've got a monitor and a laptop, so I have two screens, and it's hard sometimes to find that cursor. And here is another quilt she did. I love the simplicity, but it is striking. Then here is her Chloe admiring this quilt. That colorway is exquisite, Debbie. And Chloe's all grown up. What a dear heart. And how nice of her to help you. And then look at this blue heron that's up on her design wall right now. Isn't that gorgeous? And I love the design wall with the grid pattern. Boy, that makes it easy to keep your blocks level. Fantastic. Oh, what is it about Jody? Oh, good. Oh, thank you, Mary, for telling us that. Yes, our Jody is busy. She put out a new show about a month ago. She is working. She's such a good employee that when people actually get her on the payroll, they just love her. And I knew that she would find another job soon. I tell you, when these big corporations just lay people off, it's just really frustrating. This is Joni's wonderful Tilda Kitschy doll. We made these, I guess, several months, maybe 3 months ago. I don't know. All right, then Miss Mary, and I'll show you quickly her version of her Kitschy doll, which is just as cute and colorful as our Mary is. And then we're headed over, and here is her birdies on a wire. And I love, love, love that she puts her own touch. She has more birdies. She's got her colors. I just love it. So anytime, no matter how I do a pattern or whatever, please feel free to put your own touches and make it all your own. And then Mare, just to show you real quick some of her amazing plants. And I think this was back in June, but aren't they beautiful? And this is in the greater San Francisco Bay Area, and it is lovely. Her roses, just wonderful plants. So way to go, Miss Mare. All right, and don't forget, you can send me pictures of your show and tell to that same address, that ourtimetoquilt@gmail.com. Here is Marsha Hahn's wonderful baskets, and I love the way hers, I've made them before, but they were square. I love how hers are pyramidal. I mean, they just gives that extra touch of sophistication. So, and that is a piece of petrified wood in there. I got so excited about that. It was like, oh, she just wants me to pay attention to the basket. But that petrified wood, how cool. Love Arizona. Okay. Now let's see who is next. We have Miss Melanie, who had her friend Brenda come up and sew, and her husband Dan made this wonderful quilt. I love it. And then look what this is Brenda Sharp, who has an online store in Michigan. Brenda Sharp. And look at that. That is so fascinating. Love these modern quilts. Then Miss Melanie has been doing a lot of embroidery. In fact, she told me she's taking off the month of July from her hospital sewing so that she can get a project done. So hopefully by the end of this month, we're going to see some great progress. So I didn't ask her what it is she's working on, but I'm sure she's an excellent seamstress, and I'm sure we're going to love it. All right. And then last but definitely not least, Meltem. And Meltem lives in Turkey, and which is a fascinating culture to me. And this is the Hagia Sophia, and I don't know the exact pronunciation. I apologize, but it's spelled Hagia and then Sophia. And it's a most gorgeous mosque that is ancient. I mean ancient. And look at all these frescoes painted into the plaster in this beautiful place. Look at that dome. Isn't that beautiful? So she took a trip to it. I told her Mark and I saw a show about it and were fascinated. So she said the next time she went, she would take pictures. And bless her heart, she did. She did. We are so lucky to see this. Oh, Ah, look at this. Isn't that beautiful? Look at these columns and the gold and the lighting and the ancient walls with, and I'm sure all of this has meaning as well as beauty. Then we've got some pictures that when she was walking through Istanbul, some of the shops along the way, and this is all the custom dress, the dress of Turkey throughout time and history and current. Look at this beautiful, beautiful pottery. Just beautiful. Oh, look at this. Isn't that gorgeous? Look at that that's tiny mosaic work. Almost looks like crackle, but I think it's mosaic. In fact, did you hear this week there was a mosaic, an ancient mosaic with a very romantic storyline. And it finally made its way back to the rightful owner, Pompeii, the city of Pompeii. And a German officer had stolen it during the Second World War. And whoever was next in line to inherit it contacted the Italian authorities and said, I think I have something that belongs to you all. And they were so grateful, and what a wonderful man to return that back to the rightful place. So now it's going to be in a museum there. So that is amazing. 2,000 years old, plus, at least. Look at the jewelry in Turkey. We just can't imagine having this kind of history in the U.S. We're so new. This is just amazing. Look at that garden. Look at this. And I love the people just gathering, enjoying this magnificent building. Just beautiful. Look at these tapestries. Now, they might be rugs, tapestries, it's just beautiful works, done by hand. Beautiful. The colors are just exquisite. And look at this building on the street. Isn't that fascinating? Thank you so much, Meltem, for doing this for us. These are all bits and shards of ceramics that are placed into a wall. I just love it. And in this glass, they have filled in with cement and put shards that make it look like it's got a drink in that glass. So that is just fascinating. There's a whirling dervish in the wall. And a whirling dervish is a person, here's another one. It's kind of like a monk in that religion, and they dance and spin themselves into a kind of state of nirvana or one with God. This is the man to call to worship. And he's saying, Allah is good, Allah is supreme. And it sounds like they answer it back. Isn't it just beautiful? Isn't that something? And I'm sure that that people can hear it from miles. I thought that was just fascinating. Wow, isn't that the neatest thing? So I'm glad she's teaching us a little about a part of the world that most of us would probably never be able to visit. Lisa's so lucky to be so traveled and to be so knowledgeable about other nations and religions. And so we're just lucky. I'm so glad to see Lisa back today. Okay, so I think we have come to the end of today's show, and 10 o'clock tomorrow morning will be here before we know it. But I got to thank Mark again, because I'm going to be able to use the OBS system on our Jitsi tomorrow, which means I can really zoom you in to show you what I'm doing. I can see what you might have a problem with, and I can show you how to fix it. So he just every day, I mean, he's a good one. He really is. And we've had the best week. So this has been a glorious week. And I can't wait until next Sunday when we can show you the progress made on our Snail's Trail alfresco quilt. So I hope you will join us. Send me an email. Tell me you want to see what we're doing, whatever. Come and bring some crochet if you want, or knitting, or virtual chocolate, because we love our chocolate. But come join us and we'll have some fun. All right, I will, if you need a link to get to the site, if you already came Wednesday, then you know what that link is. The link doesn't change. And we can't wait to see all of you. Stop in. Marsha, maybe you can stop by and just say hi. So we will do that. And thank you from the bottom of my heart for spending this time with me. You don't know what this means in helping me try to find my place of joy and creativity, and it's all due to you. So thank you very much. Have a great week. Do something just for you, because how can you take care of other people unless you've taken care of yourself first? I'll see you next Sunday or during the class this week. So everyone, take very good care. All right. Have a good week.